Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here. Thanks so much for tuning in and welcome to another episode. So today I would like to first mention that on Saturday, October 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time here in the US, we're going to do our second live show, and it's going to be about 3 articles that came out this past week about AI and where it's at and where it's going. And these are 3 pretty connected, involved people in artificial intelligence. So it'll be interesting to talk about their different opinions. And then I'll give my thoughts and take Q&A. So look for that on Saturday, October 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I've already posted the event on the channel, so all you have to do is set a reminder and you'll be all set. The other thing, of course, is that I want to remind you about why the AI Guide exists. And there's 2 reasons. The first is that as an exponential technology, AI is in the exponential phase now and going to expand its use very, very rapidly. And the reason why is because AI is used to make other exponential technologies work, one of which we're going to talk about in a minute. What are those technologies? Those technologies are 3D printing. They are autonomous vehicles. They are autonomous aircraft. They are urban mobility aircraft. There's medicine is another one, breakthroughs in medical research and pharmaceutical research. There's too much to mention. Because these other technologies are enabled by AI, which is exponential, they themselves become exponential. We're going to talk about 3D printing today, and we haven't talked about it in a while, and it's a really important topic. So there's a cool article this week out of Buzz about Cadillac and the use of 3D printing. So why was this article interesting? Well, right off the bat, at the beginning of the article, it says that recent advances in 3D printing have been driven by new algorithms. They mean AI. So that's number 1. Number 2, hardware to print is getting better rapidly. It itself, the hardware improvement, is now exponential and is scaling up. So this will give you a sense of what has happened in the last 10 years. So about 10 years ago, Cadillac established a partnership with Carnegie Mellon University, one of the foremost institutions in AI from the beginning. And they wanted Carnegie Mellon, CMU, to help them with figuring out 3D printing, because 3D printing still today is low volume, but it has a number of advantages over traditional manufacturing. So just a reminder, 3D printing is building up a either partially finished or totally finished object layer by layer. Whereas traditional manufacturing, you take a big block of metal and you keep shaving the metal down until it's in the shape you want. Now, as I just said, Cadillac says they use 3D printing to make unfinished parts, and then they machine them, or they may make a finished part. And they were talking about specifically the Cadillac CT4V and CT5V Blackwing, and the use of 4 different 3D parts now on the production version of these cars. But the article talks a lot about how 3D printing is extremely beneficial for pre-production. What is that? Well, at a car company like General Motors that owns Cadillac, you have over 100,000 employees, right? They have 10,000 engineers alone. So this is a massive company at massive scale. And what they tried to do with CMU first was figure out what the potential of 3D printing was for them. And they pretty quickly realized early on that one of the major benefits is in the design phase, because you're making a prototype, you're making a one-off of a vehicle that will then be tested, validated, and potentially go into production. Not all prototype vehicles do go into production. And these prototype vehicles are one of a kind, so traditional manufacturing techniques don't make a lot of sense for a lot of stuff on these prototype cars. And that's where 3D printing can be extremely beneficial. And the article goes on to explain that 3D printing is one part of what is called additive manufacturing, which is new materials, a new way of making an item with those new materials, that's 3D printing, and finishing, and being able to rapidly prototype. This is additive manufacturing ecosystem. So it's made up of materials, equipment, design, computer design, and AI algorithm. The AI algorithm ensures what's called repeatability. So that means that they can make the same part the exact same way time after time after time with no variation. And it turns out that additive manufacturing is far more accurate in that respect than traditional manufacturing. In traditional manufacturing, you have a certain amount of spoilage, quality problems, waste, not with additive manufacturing. Once you get a correct prototype, it will make it over and over again forever with no error, and that's extremely powerful. So why has Cadillac spent 10 years working on AI-driven 3D printing? Because this dramatically speeds up introduction of new vehicles. Introducing a new vehicle historically in the car business took at least 5 years to go through design, prototyping, pre-production, and production, and get it on the market, maybe up to 10 years, a very long time. The amazing thing that Cadillac has been able to do with 3D printing and the total additive manufacturing concept is to dramatically shorten those lead times. So they gave an example how it used to take them between 6 months and a year just to get a mold to make one part on a car from a vendor. Not with 3D printing. They can get it in hours or days as opposed to 6 to 12 months. This is the power of exponential technologies. And that's why I created the AI Guide, is because this change is all behind the scenes and invisible, but it's extremely disruptive. And one day it will become public and very visible and very disruptive to human beings. So here we focus on making AI human. What does what is happening mean to the individual person and society? That's number one. And number two, explaining really complicated things like this in a way that anyone will be able to understand and realize what's about to happen. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to prepare you for a future with severe job disruption. We're going to talk in detail about that on the live coming up in a few days. And this is not coming from me. This is coming from the experts in the industry. I am trying to provide the information and resources for you to be prepared for massive disruption that is going to change everybody's lives without exception. In that regard, click the link below, get your free resource, learn more about AI, because knowledge is power. The more you learn, the better prepared you're going to be. And number two, if you go to davidtheAIguide.com and put in your email address, when you put in for that resource, you're going to get a series of emails where you can find a way to get other resources that are going to prepare you for the job disruption that's coming. So thanks so much for tuning in, but it's very interesting. They say in this article that 3D printing is now at scale, meaning it is frequently used and being rolled out to all 10,000 engineers in Cadillac alone to use for prototyping and pre-production. And they're also, as I said at the beginning, with the 4 parts on these 2 vehicles, moving it into production. And as hardware rapidly improves, right now 3D printing is still a small batch, right? It cannot make parts in huge volumes, but that will change. That'll change. So be prepared. Click the link, get your resources. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also live Saturday, October 30th. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you next time.